Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Some months ago, I did a video saying that the Amazon's new series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, what a stupid title, would be a load of old rubbish. But the mainstream media and all the shill sites said, no, it's going to be the greatest ever, it's going to be the greatest. And if you hate it, you're racist and ist and phobe and you're anti this and anti that, and you'll be the most awful people if you hate it. And so us fans knew it was going to be awful. And then the teaser trailers came out and they were ratioed to hell because real fans looked at it and said, this is appalling. It's got nothing to do with Tolkien. It is dire. It's fan fiction, and it's not even good fan fiction. This show is going to cost $1 billion. Billion with a B for a television series. And it's utter crap. And how do we know that? Well, we've got to the point where even the mainstream media, who have now come to the end of the review embargo because it comes out tonight, have said exactly what they think about it. Oh my God. Let's look at this unbelievable mainstream media review of Amazon's very, very expensive pile. Before we get into this, I must say, it breaks my heart. It doesn't really. You have to laugh. You really do. But this is what happens when you mix wokery, identity politics and virtue signalling and $1 billion and stupidity. Give it a good stir and you get this. And it's so bad. But let's go into this review. Christopher Stevens reviews The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Stupid title. No turkey, however bloated and stupid, could ever be big enough to convey the mesmerising awfulness of Amazon's $1 billion Tolkien epic fail. The budget for the project was massive. Future gambling $1 billion. It cost Amazon $250 million just to secure the rights to the prequel. And it isn't even a prequel. Aside from Sir Lenny Henry, the only well-known cast star is Peter Mullen. Lenny Henry is a bitter, sad man. He's as mean as hell. There's reports about him arguing pennies in a coffee shop. He is no wonder Dawn French left him. As he's got older, he's become more and more miserable. He was never ever funny. Let's be flat out this. He's always called a comedian. He was never ever funny. But he did used to do a lot for Live Aid. Not Live Aid. Live Aid. Comic Relief. Damn it. Comic Relief. He used to do a lot for Comic Relief. And then he sat there and watched all these white people going to Africa and going, oh yeah, well, we've raised this for you. We raised this. We're going to get this water made. We're going to open this hospital. And he claimed that they were white savioring. Oh, look, all these white people come to Africa and say being the white saviour. And then immediately, that was it. He said that. And Comic Relief started, never made as much money again. And he's a terrible actor, it must also be said. So, Turkey, first of all, rating 1 star. And I think 1 star because I don't think he can do half a star. Anyway, rating 1 star. Turkey is not the word. No turkey, however bloated and stupid, could ever be big enough to convey the mesmerising awfulness of Amazon's $1 billion epic. And this is a disaster dragon. Plucked, spatchcocked, and with a tanker load of Paxo stuffed up its fundament, roasted and served with soggy sprouts. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is so staggeringly bad, it's hilarious. Everything about it is ill-judged to a spectacular extreme, and we knew it would be. We've been saying for a long time it would be, and every time we criticise this, every time we opened our mouth and said this show's going to be awful, the lefty woke wankerati would be on our case going, oh, but you just haters, you're ists, you're phobes. No, it's that bad. The cliche-laden script, the dire acting, the leaden pace, and the sheer inconsistency and confusion as it lurches between styles, where do we start? And there's a picture of Guy Ladriel, who doesn't exist. Fan fiction. This is somebody thinking, oh, Galadriel, I'll put her in a bit of uniform and she's got her boob armour. And it's, it's, what is this? It's masturbatory fantasy from a 14-year-old boy. It's rubbish. Anyway, let's start with the budget. $1 billion. Let that sink in. 1,000 million bucks. Such a colossal investment, even for Amazon, that industry rumour says the brand is gambling its entire future as a film production company. Now, I'm going to say something in a moment. If this show fails, say insiders, executives can be forced to shut down Amazon studios. Right, well, here's the thing. When Elon Musk spent $1 billion on something, people said, that's a lot of money. That could, that could feed people. That could be fed. It's $1 billion. That could be so much good. But nobody has said $1 billion that Amazon is wanking away on a pile of crap. They aren't saying, that should be used. That could have been used for good. That could have been used to feed people. No, because this is wokey, lefty identity politics, and therefore it's worth every cent of $1 billion. Hypocrite much? Anyway, the book rights alone cost $250 million. And what did Amazon get for that? This is not a remake of Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. This is a prequel based on the appendices. The reams, and they've put appendixes. For God's sake, the journalism in this country is appalling. It's not appendixes, it's appendices. With a C where the X should be. You morons. Anyway, the reams of footnotes dumped by J.R. Tolkien at the end of the Rings trilogy. It's about, now in a book that thick, the appendices are about that thick. And they spent $250 million on that. Anyway, this is chronicling millennia of turgid historical fantasy. That's right, the unreadable bits. Yes, the bits he decided weren't good enough to put into the book. So he put some notes at the back end. And they spent $250 million on notes, effectively. Whoever thought this was a wise buy must have been smashed out of their minds on Miraver, the elvish liquor. There's no doubt we can see the budget. It casts a throbbing glow over the screen like a chest full of gold. Ultra-high definition computer graphics paint ivory cities in mountain passes and conjure gigantic monsters in palaces of dark magic. But magnificent visuals are meaningless if nobody knows who the audience is meant to be, and it's impossible to guess whether The Rings of Power is meant for children or hardcore fans or for general viewers, because it fails them all. It really does. It really is awful. One fight sequence features Elf Princess Galadriel in acrobatic action against an angry troll who pops up from offstage like an adversary in a Dungeons and Dragons board game. Galadriel, Morpeth Clark, cartwheels and whirls her enchanted sword before dispatching the giant fiend with a bloodless blow. It's highly stylized like a Japanese manga cartoon, and where's the blood? You get a sword and put it into a monster, you're going to see a lot of blood. And if you want that sort of thing, look at The Boys. Amazon did The Boys, and let me tell you, it's 100 times better because they didn't go for woke politics. They went for straight up swearing, manly action with lots of gore, and it works brilliantly. An episode later, the healer Bronwyn and her son fight an orc, and this time the violence is as brutal as anything in Game of Thrones. They stab it, spear it, run it through, hang it, and finally saw through its neck with a knife before Bronwyn, soaked in blood, displays the head as a trophy. Small children and persons of a nervous disposition should not watch. Then the tale flies back to the Harfoots. These are the hobbits that didn't exist in this period of time. Prehistoric hobbits that wear garlands of acorns and dress in rags as though they've escaped from a set of Wurzel Gummidge. And the most awful plastic feet. You watch them walking and you can see the join. It is cheap as chips and horrific. Led by Lenny Henry as Sadok, well, 3 of those letters are right anyway, sad. The Harfoots talk in a garble of Jamaican, Irish and Somerset accents. They're lovable and funny in a slapstick way. Poppy Proudfellow, Megan Richards, trips on an expedition to scrump blackberries and falls flat in a puddle. When she lifts her muddy face to the camera, like Oliver Hardy, she sighs, enchanting. Harfoot Land is cute, until old Mr. Brandyfoot slips and snaps his leg with a crack that would make the cast of Casualty wince. They're trying their best. What they've got... I'll tell you what this is. This is a show made by a committee. It did not have an overseer. It did not have anyone sitting there saying, right, this is the tone, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to present. It was a committee and they're all going, oh, but you must have enough people like this, it must people like this. We want to see faces there, we want to see sexualities there. And they've pushed all this. And at the very last, at the very end, they went, story? Who's doing the story? Oh, don't worry about the story. As long as we get representation, that's all that counts. One disconnected style follows wildly after another. A static scene in which elves journey by ship is conceived as a pre-Raphaelite painting. Each actor stock still in silver armour, swords clasped to their chests, long hair rippling, eyes fixed on the horizon in pious awe. Inspired by a flock of birds, they lift their voices in a heavenly choir. There's a lot of this in quasi-religious imagery. The first episodes begin with a cod Bible reading. There was a time when the world was so young there had not yet been a sunrise, but even then there was light. Yeah, light. Yeah, that was probably the first script being burnt because it wasn't, up to snuff. Should have burnt them all. Popular culture invents blether like this to replace real religion. It's Scientology for the superhero movie era. Year gave way to year, century gave way to century, the narrator continues, and already this reviewer was giving way to laughter. Soon every fresh clunker provoked such hoots that I had to keep pausing to gather my composure. It is said that the wine of victory is sweetest for those in whose bitter trials it is fermented, says the elf Elrond, young Ned Stark, to Galadriel, who's not Galadriel. And I'm off again. If but a whisper of a rumour is the threat you perceive proves true, he goes on, until I'm weeping with laughter. Bronwyn and her boyfriend Arondir the elf share some marvellous exchanges. I must follow the passage, he tells her. Make your own jokes up here, guys. Just make your own jokes up. You don't know what's down there, she cries. That, he replies portentously, is the reason I must go. I'm sorry, the sexual overtones in this is awful. Without a shred of irony, Galadriel declares to her elf platoon, the order is given, we march at first light. She can't have seen the wonderful skit by Steve Coogan and Bob Brydon in The Trip, where they spend a car journey wondering why warriors in terrible historical dramas always leave at first light. They never leave at 9:30ish. Bronwyn hasn't watched it either. She urges the villagers to flee. If there's any of you here who want to live, we want to make it the Elven Tower at first light. Honestly, it is. It was written by school children. I'm sure this was written by school children. It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of it they go, and they woke up and it was all a dream. Even when there's no dialogue, some of the acting is abysmal. Galadriel's elf patrol, caught in a snowstorm, battle away across the screen with their arms outstretched like a troop of mimes. At least they're not talking. Most of the elf scenes are rigid, as two characters in robes take it in turns to dump mounds of exposition over each other's heads. An alliance with the Dwarfs would be the diplomatic achievement of the age, Celebrimbor tells Elrond. It is worse. I have watched this, and I'm not kidding you. It sucketh mightily. Cue to visit the dwarf world, where Elrond challenges the prince, Owen Arthur, to a rock-breaking competition. One of them hits a rock with a hammer, then the other one hits a rock with a hammer, and this goes on for some time. If the cast list seems a little obscure, that's intentional. Aside from Sir Sad Lady Henry, the only well-known star is Peter Mullen, who plays the king of the dwarves. Hiring an experienced and subtle actor, even if he's in a massive prosthetic nose and filmed to appear 4 feet tall, might seem a canny decision. But it isn't. Mullen's talent simply highlights how woeful everything and everyone else is. The effect is like sticking Richard Burton into an Amdram pantomime. Richard Burton. Burton was famously expensive, of course. Cleopatra, in which he starred with future wife Elizabeth Taylor, cost $31 million, the most expensive film ever in 1963. Think of it, a mere $31 million. That would barely buy you a pair of Lenny Henry's fake feet. And it does suck beyond anything. It really is. It sucks and blows. It is the most appalling waste of money. And here we have even the mainstream media, the shills that have been talking this up for months and months and months, have just let go and dropped this turkey. It is awful. Do not watch it. Do not waste your time. If you've already got Amazon Prime, fine, go and watch it and laugh. If you haven't got Amazon Prime, do not buy Amazon Prime to watch it. Find someone who has got Amazon Prime, go around there, watch the first episode, laugh your balls off and say, this is crap. Anyway, I'm done and I'm out. It pleases me no end that this has turned out to be a turkey of immense proportions. Identity politics and wokery do not make for entertainment. A good story helps. This has not got a good story. It hasn't even got the vague hint of a good story, because story was the last thing on their mind. Representation and inclusion. That's all this was. And it shows. Well, they've represented and they've included. They've represented a load of old rubbish and they've included a pile of crap. In fact, Jeff Goldblum can sum it up way better than I can. And I'll leave you with Jeff. Thanks for watching.